Hey people, it's nice talking. Now, I did this a while ago, which was a bit about Machiavelli, and I wanted to get back to it. And so, for those of you who don't know, especially for the black males who are listening, because I know that many of the most, if not all, my subscribers are black. So, for the black males, this is a book you need to read, Machiavelli the Prince. And if that name sounds familiar because Tupac used it, that was for a reason because he was very inspired by him. Anyway, let's get on to it. This is chapter 8 of The Prince, of those who become princes through evil. I must mention two other ways for a private citizen to become a prince that can be not attributed to fortune or skill, though I shall discuss one of them at greater length when I speak of republics. There are when a man obtains a principality in an evil or nefarious way, when a private citizen, by the favor of his fellow citizens, becomes the prince of his state. Speaking of the first way, I shall offer two examples, one an ancient, the other from our times, and I shall leave it at that. These examples will be enough for anyone constrained to imitate them. When Agathocles the Sicilian became the king of Syracuse, he did so not only as a private citizen, but as one who had come from the lowliest and most humblest of circumstances. He was the son of a potter, and led a wicked life from first to last. And yet he combined his wickedness with such skill of mind and body that when he joined the army, he rose through the ranks to become praetor of Syracuse. Once established in that position, he set about becoming a prince and retaining his principality by means of violence, while depending upon others for that which he had originally been granted by his fellow citizens. He conspired with Hamilcar the Carthaginian, who was waging his war in Sicily with his army, and one morning Agathocles called together the people and the senate of Syracuse as if to discuss important issues concerning the republic, and then at a signal to his soldiers had them kill all the senators and the richest men of the city. Then he became the unchallenged prince of the city. So basically, he used his power to kill off all his opponents, basically like mafia style. And though the Carthaginians defeated him twice and finally besieged Syracuse, he managed to defend the city, and leaving a part of his army to withstand the siege, left on a campaign with the rest of South Africa. And I just want to clear something up. It says Syracuse. I mean, it should be obvious, but Syracuse is not that city in New York State. It's in Sicily, which is the island of Italy. Anyway, let's get back to this. Within a short time, he freed Syracuse from the siege and brought Carthage to its knees, forcing it to reach an agreement with him and to content itself with the possession of Africa, leaving Sicily to Agathocles. If one weighs Agathocles' actions and skill, there is not much that can be attributed to fortune. That is basically saying he didn't rely on luck, he made his own luck. As I pointed out, he did not gain his principality through anyone's favor, but rose to it through the ranks of the army with 1,000 privations and dangers, and kept possession of the principality through many bold and dangerous fears. And yet we cannot define as skillful killing one's fellow citizens, betraying one's friends, and showing no loyalty, mercy, or moral obligation. These means can lead to power, but not glory. Because if one considers Agathocles' skill at plunging into and out of danger, and the greatness of his spirit in enduring and overcoming adversity, he cannot be judged inferior to the most excellent leaders. In other words, one cannot attribute to fortune or skill what he attained or either of them. Basically, he's saying that he gained it through some really wicked means. Now, it's not going to make him look good, but he got the power at the end of the day. And this is one of the things, you've heard in American history, they talk about how great the American leaders were. Like, George Washington, he chopped down a cherry tree and said, "I cannot tell a lie, I did it." Which is not true. That was made up. And the thing is, the founding fathers were a bunch of lying, raping, stealing, scumbag slave owners. They weren't good or anything close to it. Okay? Same thing here. But at the end of the day, as Winston Churchill said, history will be kind to me because I intend to write it. So, although, they got to power by some evil means, as far as they're concerned, hey, they can rewrite everything and paint themselves to look like the heroes. Okay, in our own times, during the reign of Pope Alexander VI, we have the example of Oliverotto da Fermo. He had been orphaned as a child and raised by his maternal uncle Giovanni Fogliani, and in his early years had been sent to serve under Paolo Vitelli to master the military arts, so that he might attain a high rank in the army. When Paolo died, Oliveretto fought under Paolo's brother Vitellozzo, and very quickly became resourceful and vigorous in the body and mind, became commander of Vitellozzo's army, but he felt serving others was unbecoming. He desired to seize the town of Fermo with the support of Vitellozzo and with the help of some of Fermo's citizens, who preferred servitude to freedom for their city. Oliveretto wrote to his uncle Giovanni Fogliani that, having been away from home for many years, he wanted to return to see him and his town and reacquaint himself with his patrimony. He wrote, all these years he had fought in order to acquire honor, and now he wanted his fellow citizens to see that he had not spent his time in vain. He wanted to return with honor accompanied by 100 friends and servants on horseback, and asked his uncle to ensure that the citizens of Fermo would receive him with ceremony, which also reflect well on his uncle as his guardian, and Giovanni did not fail to show his nephew every courtesy. Having him received with honor by the citizens of Fermo, he quartered him and his men in his houses. After a few days, having waited to put into place what was necessary for his future wickedness, Oliveretto ordered a great feast to which he invited Giovanni Fogliani and all the foremost men of Fermo. After the courses had been eaten and the usual entertainments were over, Oliveretto artfully introduced delicate subjects, speaking of the greatness of Pope Alexander and his son Cesare and of their campaigns. Giovanni and the others responded. Oliveretto suggested that such delicate matters would be discussed in a more private place. He retired to a chamber with Giovanni and other citizens, and no sooner had they seated themselves than soldiers emerged from hiding place and slaughtered Giovanni and the rest. After the slaughter, Oliveretto mounted a horse and took over the town, besieging the supreme magistrate in his palace. The citizens were forced to obey him out of fear, and he made them form a new government with himself as prince. As everyone would have opposed him was dead, they could not harm him, and Oliveretto reinforced his position with new civil and military laws. Within a year, he was secure in the town of Fermo and had become a source of fear for his neighbors. It would have been as hard to defeat him as to defeat Agathocles had Oliveretto not let himself be deceived by Cesare Borgia, who, as I have mentioned, trapped the Orsini and the Vitelli in Sinigalia. It was in Sinigalia, a year after Oliveretto, and just a little tidbit, Cesare Borgia, for those who don't know, that portrait of Jesus that you see, that's this guy who's going around making war on people and conquering them, who's the son of the Pope. That's the same guy. The person you see as Jesus is Cesare Borgia. It was Sinigalia, a year after Oliveretto had murdered his uncle, that he was strangled along with Vitellozzo, who had been his tutor in skill and wickedness. One might wonder how Agathocles and others like him, after countless betrayals and so much cruelty, could live so long and securely in their states and defend themselves from outside enemies, and why they were never conspired against by the citizens, were, as many of us could not retain their states through cruelty, even in times of peace or in the certain times of war. I believe this depends upon whether cruelty is used well or badly. Cruelty can be called well used if it is even permitted to use the word well in connection with evil. If it is executed a single stroke out of necessity to secure one's power, and it is then not continued but converted into the greatest possible benefit for one's subjects. Badly used cruelty is cruelty that, even if it initially limited, increases through time rather than subsiding. Those who follow the first path can maintain their position in their state with the blessing of God and man, as Agathocles did. The others cannot possibly survive. A prince can conclude from this that when he conquers a state, he must weigh all the acts of cruelty that are necessary and execute them all at a single stroke, so they will not have to repeat it every day, and by not repeating them, assure the people and win them over by subsequently benefiting them. Whoever proceeds otherwise, through fear or bad judgment, will always keep a knife at hand. He can never rely on his subjects, as they cannot feel secure under him. Therefore, any cruelty has to be executed at once, so that the less it is tasted, the less it offends, while benefits must be dispensed little by little, so that they will be savored at all the more. Primarily, a prince must live with his subjects in such a way that no incident, either good or bad, should make him change his course, because when bad times cause him to employ more stringent methods, it will be too late. Nor will the good he does benefit him, because it will judge to have been forced. Alright, so I'm going to go over some of this. So, when he talks about cruelty, the thing is, what he would often talk about Machiavelli in his context is like, when he talks about eliminating his enemies, he didn't eliminate one enemy and then another one when they started challenging. He just identified everyone who could threaten him when he took over and took him out. And the thing is, people are very forgetful. I mean, it's amazing what people forget. Like, people cheered Obama, and that guy did nothing for black Americans, and yet people will still go on and talk about him as this kind of hero simply because of the image of him. So, people will forget, no matter how evil the things are, as long as it happens in one go and doesn't happen again. And basically, he should just try and live at peace with his subject. So, you know, whatever he does, good or bad, it shouldn't be enough to push them over the edge. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. This isn't usually what I talk about, but I like to always introduce different subjects as videos to give a variety. So if you enjoyed this, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for other future videos, put them down in the comments. If you want to support the GoFundMe, I'll leave that there. Peace, family.